Welcome back, everybody. How many times do I have to tell you I do not trust my government anymore? And I certainly don't trust anything coming out of the White House. Karine Jean-Pierre today talking about the debt limit battle and the need to raise it, they say. Watch.
This is the only option that we have, is for Congress to do its job, for Congress to deal with the debt limit. That's the only option in front of us. That is the best option for the American people. That's the best way to make sure that our economy doesn't get turned on its head, that we don't get a situation where we potentially lose up to 8 million jobs or devastate retirement.
So I don't want to listen to her talk about the doom and gloom, because this is what they have, all doom and gloom. She says Congress doesn't do its job. May I remind her, the House of Representatives, under the leadership of Speaker McCarthy, actually passed a debt limit bill that raises the debt ceiling. They've done their job. And still, the White House, we get crickets from them. Treasury Secretary Yellen says June 1st is a hard date. The world collapses come June 1st if we don't get a debt ceiling raise. I do not believe it. I want to see America's QuickBooks. I want to see the revenues. I want to see the cash flows. I want to see the bills that are going out, the money coming in, all of it. She's not going to show it to us. This is Janet Yellen.
Early June is when we project that we will run out of cash, and there is a chance it could be as early as June 1st, whether it's defaulting on interest payments that are due on the debt or payments due for Social Security recipients or to Medicare providers. We would simply not have enough cash to meet all of our obligations.
This is maddening. She's trying to scare old people that are not going to get Social Security. You prioritize the payments, and there are other options. You can cut spending, a lot of it. You could do it in Washington, which is why I loved this soundbite when I heard it yesterday, because I don't trust Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary. You know who else doesn't? Matt Gaetz.
I no longer trust, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of wrong answers on the economy, to be able to tell me when the default occurs.
I love that soundbite. Absolutely love it, which is why I wanted to bring back on my Republican friend, Congressman from Florida, Matt Gaetz. Congressman, welcome.
Thanks so much, Grant. And you have to wonder who still trusts Janet Yellen to get anything right. She blew the call on inflation, on interest rates. They nationalized the banking system because they didn't see the way in which the policies of the Fed and the circumstances of our economy led to a lot of these places facing runs from their depositors. So I don't know that Janet Yellen's going to win any awards for correct answers, and that's why I don't really take her word for it on, frankly, anything.
I'm with you on that. So I heard Congressman Byron Donalds talking about wanting to see the numbers. Look, the Congress is responsible for spending. It seems legitimate that you would be allowed to see the books. Have you seen the books? Is anyone showing the numbers to all of you?
No, I think the only thing we've seen is Janet Yellen wander out of the back room of the White House with a Ouija board under her arm. Well, now it's early June. You know why they picked early June, Grant? Because June 15th, you're going to get quarterly payments coming in, and there's going to be a ton of cash. All this cash they've put out into the economy, you're going to get some of that back in terms of the receipts and the quarterly payments. I think that would push this debt limit into the fall and would align with the appropriations process, where my conservative colleagues and I have demanded the passage of separate appropriations bills to deal with the different facets of the government, not just one up or down vote. And that's why gaslighting an additional $4 trillion in debt that can be accrued by the country is a really bad idea. That's what the Biden administration is currently negotiating for. And I'm glad Speaker McCarthy is in there fighting for a rollback in spending, work requirements, the Republican energy plan, regulatory reform in the work of the REINS Act, repeal of the Green New Deal features of some of the Inflation Reduction Act. And if we got all that, if we got most of that, if we got a substantial portion of that, it would be more than Republicans have gotten on the debt limit, certainly at any time in my adult life.
Congressman Gaetz, are you surprised like me? You and I were not fans of Speaker McCarthy early on. I worked to make sure he probably didn't get the Speaker's position. He did. I'm actually very surprised by the job he's doing. Are you?
I believe that we are getting the very best version of Kevin McCarthy. And I think the reason we're getting that version of Kevin McCarthy is precisely because of the cathartic process we went through in early January. Speaker McCarthy understands that the speakership is not a top-down enterprise in the House of Representatives. He operates each and every day solely subject to the consent of the governed. And that has caused him to be very responsive to the calls we've made for fiscal responsibility, for strong oversight, for action on the border. In each of these ways, I think that these specific discussions that we had in January front-loaded the pain. Now we're as unified as I've seen Republicans at any time during my tenure here, and we want the Speaker to get a good deal. We're encouraging him. We're rooting for him, and I am very pleased with the tone and the policy objectives that he set so forward.
All right, I want to switch topics briefly to the IRS. Now, speaking of the debt limit, the Democrats don't want to take the 87,000 IRS agents out, which tells you exactly what they think about us and who they want to go after. But the IRS whistleblower has come out now that said the DOJ scuttled the investigation into Hunter Biden. You have been one of a few congressmen and women in the House that have been at the forefront of exposing the Biden corruption. I want you to listen to one of the whistleblowers that talked to CBS News, and then I'll get your response on the other side.
There was multiple steps that were slow walked at the direction of the Department of Justice.
Had you ever encountered that before?
I have not, no. These deviations from normal process, and each and every time it seemed to always benefit the subject.
I was told irregularities, never seen it before. What do we do to fix the Department of Justice, Congressman?
Well, the Biden's problems at the IRS, that's really the tip of the iceberg. The real tell in that whistleblower's claim is the extent that the Department of Justice is willing to go to clean up their mess and to stop the investigations. And there's something I've seen emerge in particular. Whenever there's derogatory information that comes in about Joe or Hunter Biden, there's a group called the Foreign Influence Task Force that goes and immediately designates it Russian disinformation or foreign disinformation. So these folks have an international crime syndicate where they shake down foreigners for money in an influencing peddling operation. And then if you get negative information that will showcase that criminal activity, it's all of a sudden deemed from irreputable sources. Well, guess what? The Bidens are doing business with irreputable people. And yet they've been able to evade justice because they have a Department of Justice that is doing their bidding. And that's something we're exposing every day. But we can't bring the requisite accountability until we have someone in the White House that'll clean that place up.
You know, one of the things that I see, Congressman, is that Joe Biden, through all his years, has surrounded himself with the same cast of characters that surrounded themselves with the Obama as well. Merrick Garland, Antony Blinken. You got the whole slew of them that's in his administration. How many of those people knew about what Joe Biden was doing with this pay-to-play scheme, the influence peddling? If they knew, that's a real story, and I think that, too, would be criminal as well.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. Certainly, this is not an enterprise that you can run solely as a family business. But there is an all-in-the-family feature to this when you look at Joe Biden's brother, Joe Biden's son, grandkids getting wires through these various business entities that can all be traced back to the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, I miss an America where if you had the Chinese communists paying the first family, that would be pretty disqualifying for that person serving as the commander in chief. But it's what we see now. My friend Donald Trump Jr. has a joke about this. He says, you know, when my dad got elected president, I stopped my work as an international businessman. It seems as though when Hunter's dad became a national figure, that's when the international business operation started in their family. And I think that makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's when they just got going. Lastly, as far as this IRS whistleblower goes, he says it was political appointees inside the DOJ that came to him. It seemed to be that the U.S. attorney in Delaware was not one of them, the way I read it. Then I'm left wondering, was it the attorney general himself that went and scuttled this? And if that's the case, then he lied to Congress when he told all of you that there was no special treatment from the DOJ. to Hunter Biden.
So the attorney general would have been lying to Congress in that case, even if he had not been the one who engaged in this effort to try to redirect investigation activity away from the Bidens. If he was even aware of that activity, then he would have made a material misrepresentation to Congress, which would be a crime. The problem is who investigates the investigators. When these folks have the ability to charge crimes, to open grand juries, to appoint special counsels, to initiate indictments, it allows them to function as the enforcement wing of the political left in this country. And you get to a point where the American people just aren't going to take it. They're not going to trust any of the work that comes out of DOJ and FBI. I think there are a lot of good people who do work in these agencies around the country. The core rot is in Washington, D.C., and that's been the focus of our effort.
Yeah, and that's not just the FBI and IRS. The heads of most of these agencies in Washington. The deep state is certainly real. We've been seeing that firsthand over the last few years. Congressman Matt Gaetz, I always appreciate you sharing some time with us. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Stinch. Thanks for having me.